first of all, these guys are here to apologize, starting on the end with Octavius, Ellis, for those of you guys that do not know, G-Lon Ginn, Yancy Gates, and Sheck Mudge on the end. You'll hear from them in a little bit. The young guys are going to apologize. We're going to let them get out of here. And the older guys are going to take questions from you guys once Director Whit Babcock's going to join us after these guys leave, so he's got room to sit up here. Because I'm sure you guys have questions for him after he has some things to say as well. So we're all embarrassed that we're even in this position. I think we all know that what went on the other night took away from a good Xavier win. I'm a big believer in to the victor go the spoils. We won that game last year. We got to enjoy it. So for that, you know, they won the game, and instead of getting to enjoy their victory, this is what's going on in the aftermath, which is really unfortunate. So, you know, with that being said, before I let these guys talk, I think it's important to note that, you know, you guys can ask me questions at the end. Our guys, this is not new for them as far as talking about what's important in our program, what we try to do on a daily basis. You'll see when you ask them what it's all about. You know, it's we're not here, nobody's sitting up here with anything written. There's been no prepared statements. They've simply been asked to tell how they feel when they talk, and that's how I talk. So I can tell you how I feel to our university, our alumni, our fans, everybody involved that we let down. We're sorry. We're here to make it part of our past, move on with our future. We have a lot of guys that are in the locker room right now that that showed unbelievable character and controlled their emotions in a very tough time. And nobody's talking about what they did and how they should be commended for what they did. And I'm very proud of those guys, and I got to get those guys ready to play Wednesday night. Out of loyalty to them, we got a big game Wednesday, and we got to get ready for it. So we have to make this part of our past. Now, you know, a lot's been talked about things that I said after the game, and I'll make it very clear. I fully support the university's decision on all the suspensions. That being said, what I said about all of our players, that out of my frustration on the whole event, was that nobody should ever get to represent the university, in my opinion, any university, and be on a scholarship if they don't understand that it's a privilege. It's a blessing, for not just for my team, for Xavier's team, and for all student athletes across the country. In my locker room, nobody will take the floor again representing the University of Cincinnati if I don't believe that they understand that. And they will believe that. And they will believe that it is a privilege. And I think if we failed at all, as coaches, as administrators, and as part of college athletics, it's that our kids sometimes maybe aren't getting that message enough. And, you know, that's where I've been beating myself up. Although, you know, I think the guys can tell you we talk about it every day. But at the end of the day, we offer no excuses. We're not here to talk about the other school, the other suspensions. It's not of interest to us. We represent the University of Cincinnati with a lot of pride. We believe in it. We love it. And we're here to take responsibility for our actions, these guys in particular, and make it part of our past, and get focused on our future and making it somehow turning this into a positive, as Yancy and I have talked about, finding out what the rules are, is talking to local high school teams and everything that we can possibly do in the community to try to set a better example. So with that said, I think we're going to start here with the freshman, Octavius. We're going to probably talk to you guys first.
I would like to take this time right now to apologize to the fans and to my coaching staff for what happened at the game last Saturday versus Xavier. I know my action was inappropriate, but I should have just did the right thing and grabbed my teammate instead of coming out the bench throwing the first punt. And if I would never did that, none of this would never happen.
I would also like to apologize for my actions against Xavier. I feel like it could have been handled differently. I feel like I let the university down, I let the community down, and let my teammates down. And take full responsibility for what I did, and just like to say sorry. Yeah.
I would like to say I'm sorry for everything that, have happened. And, I really regret this whole thing ever happened because, I feel really embarrassed now, now, and I want to say sorry to the Cincinnati community, to to the school, the fans, and, the coaches and my teammates, because, like, this is not a way to, represent the school, and I really want to apologize for my actions. I'm sorry.
I want to apologize, really, to the whole city of Cincinnati for my actions because, I'm homegrown. I'm from here. A lot of people expect me to represent not just the University of Cincinnati, but everybody. My family, kids back in Madisonville running around, from downtown, everywhere I go, a lot of kids look at me and say, oh, there go Yancy Gates. And, the actions that I displayed is not what I'm about. It's not what the University of Cincinnati is about. It's not what my family's about, It's been a hard, couple days, dealing with it, but, those was my actions, and I have to deal with, what's going on now. And, I even want to, thank, the University of Cincinnati, the athletic director, Coach Cronin, because, it could have been over for me. And I realized that, once we got in the locker room, I was upset. A lot of people was trying to talk and see what's going on. I couldn't even say nothing because, my action was that's just not what I'm about as a person, as an athlete. And, I'm just sorry for the embarrassment that I put on myself, the coaching staff, University of Cincinnati, and the city of Cincinnati. That's not what we're about. And now people, all over the country who just now hearing about Cincinnati, that's all they know us for. And, that's embarrassing. I just want to try to move forward and, do whatever I can to make up for it. Just sorry for my actions.
When Bearcat is to our AD, I just want to make sure that for those of you who have not met him yet, he's now joined at the podium with.
Right. I wasn't originally supposed to be up here, and Coach Cronin wanted to take this opportunity, as did the players, to apologize. But after thinking on it, I'm going to be up here with these guys, and I want to support them. Certainly doesn't mean that I condone in any way, shape, or form what they did, and they know that. I met with them individually, but I believe in my heart in forgiveness. They know that they're fortunate to have a second chance. They know that they're fortunate to represent Cincinnati, and I wanted to be here to support them. I guess and none of us have any notes or scripts, so I believe it's good to speak from the heart. If there's another comment that I want to make, is, in the 5 or 6 weeks since I've been here, the thing that I've been struck by is the pride and the love people have for this school. And I want to apologize to the whole Bearcat family. That's a term that I use. We're in it all together, whether that's students or faculty and staff, trustees, the president, our fans, people nationally. We let them down. And I know that there's people out there that are angry and hurt and embarrassed. And I simply wanted to, as the director of athletics, apologize to them. I also told these players and coaches that I hold them to a much higher standard than they acted in late on Saturday during the game. We'll move forward. It doesn't mean that we'll forget, but we'll move forward and work diligently to regain that trust and respect. And again, I just simply want to apologize to the Bearcat family and assure you that we don't take it lightly, and we want to earn their respect and trust back. Thank you.
Okay, what we'll do next is we'll open the floor for questions. And if you have questions for the student athletes first, and then we'll get them off of here, and then you can certainly talk with Coach Cronin and Whit. If you would, raise your hand, and the microphone, the wireless mic, will be brought to you for your questions. Okay?
Yancy, did you think you might be dismissed from the team, or were you concerned that your career might be over?
I was just worried about, the rest of the teammates in the locker room. If I was to be dismissed for the season, that's not only hurting me, but, I'm a senior and I'm one of the older guys and one of the leaders on the team. And, that'll hurt the other guys in the locker room because, they rely on me to be in practice every day and be out there in the game to do my job, which is part, to help the team try to win. So, I was a little scared, that it all might have been over. That might have been my last game in the Cincinnati jersey. And, but, punishment I got. And, I just had to deal with it and, try to move on.
Hey, Yancy, Coach said that you guys won't take the court until you believe and understand the privilege of playing on scholarship at UC. How do you think you go about proving that?
I don't know. I knew that when I committed here, that it was a privilege to come here. I'm from here. A lot of kids that I played in the park with when I was young, I'm going to play for UC, watching Kenyon Martin and them. And when I actually got the opportunity to do that, I knew that I had the privilege and the opportunity of a lifetime that a lot of kids, from Madisonville, from over to Ryan Bond Hill, that they didn't get, based on, maybe they was just too little. You never know what the problem was, but, I understand that. And Coach Cronin knows that I know that. I talk to Coach Cronin a lot, talked to him since this happened, but I just got to, just keep doing what I'm doing and, just try to show that, I'm a better person than I showed that I was on Saturday.
Pass up to Paul.
Hey, Yancy. One, did you think that 6 games was fair and appropriate? And two, can you give us any idea of the sort of environment that was occurring out there at the end of the game that would cause something like that to happen?
Really, I don't know about the environment. Really, only I can take responsibility for my actions. No matter what was going on, I'm the older guy on the team. I've been here the longest. I should have grabbed the freshman instead of, going out there throwing punches and, all the other stuff that went on. And, as far as my suspension goes, I don't know if it's fair. Some people are going to say it's fair. Some people are going to say it's unfair. That's not up to me to decide. All I can do is, take my punishment that I get and accept it and try to move on from it.
Anything else, Paul?
Yeah, see, obviously you've probably seen the replays of everything. The first time you saw it, kind of take me through what's going through your head as you watch it, because I know out there it all was probably a blur, but seeing it all on TV, what was going through your head, the first thoughts you kind of had there?
It was bad. That's all I kept thinking, talking to my mom, my dad. It was just bad. That's all I could say was, it's bad. It looked bad, and it was bad. The whole situation was bad. That's the only thing that just kept going through my mind. That it might be over. How a lot of people gonna want me done, never to wear the jersey again. Just tried to. I just had to sit back and wait to hear what was gonna happen. So, I watched it. They kept showing it and kept showing it and made it worse and worse and worse, and it just kept showing. Especially, me, I was the highlighted guy because of who I am. And, I was the bigger guy out there. And, it's just a bad situation.
You said you talked to your mom and dad. What was that conversation like?
They're my parents. They just gonna, they was just making sure, at first that I was okay. They didn't say that what I did was right. My parents didn't raise me like that, But, they just wanted to, they was being my parents. The same thing anybody would do for their kid. Call and make sure they're okay.
This is for both players. What will you do in this downtime that you think could, restore some of your good feelings and faith with the university and your teammates?
With my teammates, definitely, still show up to practice every day, practice just as hard as if I was getting ready for the game. My teammates, they know, we close. So, with the university, I do whatever, it doesn't matter. Just whatever, because, I'm just not that type of person. A lot of people have been calling me a thug, a gangster.
Yeah, I think the best thing we can do right now is to just, learn from this and move on and, and just this is really, this is not who we are. Like, we're not violent. We're not violent people, You just gotta show everybody, what person we really are,
Anybody else for student athletes?
My question was, the prosecutor is looking at this tape right now, and the prosecutor is actually considering charges. When do you think that would be appropriate? What are your thoughts on you being charged, or your teammates being charged?
I'll answer that. That's why he's elected. That's his job. I'm sure he'll do his job. Anything we're asked to do, we'll fully comply with.
Do you think that would be appropriate charges?
To be honest with you, we just were told that before we walked in the door. So I have full faith in not only Joe Dieters, but Cy Lease is a great man that's in that department as well. Those guys are the best, so whatever they feel they need to do, we fully understand that.
The idea of, during the game, games like this, get heated trash talking going on. There were some comments you made after the game on Saturday about perhaps the officials should have taken more control of that game.
Absolutely.
On time. Give us your thoughts on that, if the players want to comment as well, too, about the trash talk and the atmosphere that appears on the court, that exists on the court in these types of situations, or can exist.
Oh, absolutely. Which is my problem with the game going forward, which I've said before. You guys understand, and this isn't to say that Xavier, because they have good games as well. They play in a good league as well. They have games, rivalry games, but it's not like that's our only good, intense game. Every game in the Big East is intense, and they're quite more physical than that game. But what's happened, for whatever reason, is the atmosphere around that game, as you alluded to, in-game, has deteriorated, and it's brought out the worst in some people. So, that being said, from an officiating standpoint, there should have been multiple technicals called. And if you want to look back at this game over the last 5 years, I don't recall a game where there were not technical fouls on players by officials that had control of the game early on. Again, that being said, it doesn't absolve us from anything that happened. No matter who was talking, as Yancy talked about, this isn't the first time it's happened. But this is the first time we didn't act the right way when that happened. So.
And how do you repair this relationship with Xavier?
We're worried about ourselves right now. You know, we need to repair our reputation and our relationship with our university and our community. You know, that's something I think for Director Whit Babcock and Mike Levinsky and the presidents of the universities. But I think it's quite obvious, guys, this isn't rocket science. You know, if we're not going to take the floor against each other in an appropriate manner, then there's no point in taking the floor. It puts people in a bad situation, and I'm going to defend these three officials. They were put in a bad situation. This game is always officiated by guys that have previously officiated this game. There was a turn of events in assigning the officials for this game from the Atlantic 10 office where the Big East was not involved. Unbeknownst to me, or I would have reached out to our administration, to reach out to their administration to make sure that we had guys on this game that had it before, so they understood what they were walking into. And in defense of those guys, they didn't understand, clearly. I think they thought I was begging for calls when I kept asking for technical fouls, stop the talking. At halftime, I was approached about it. I said, you should already called 5 Ts. He said, well, somebody off your bench might have said something. I said, T every guy on my bench. I don't care. This, you know, this can't happen. Whoever wins is irrelevant. This can't happen. That's why I'm so frustrated that there were adults involved in different ways in this. That it should have never come to this. The kids should have never been put in the situation that they were put in. Should have never been allowed to go that far. But that, again, you know, where I feel like the most that I'm beating myself up about is when the emotional situation broke out, that, you know, the guys weren't able to react in the right way. And they made emotional, they acted on emotion, they did the wrong things, they've told you about it, and no matter what could have happened to stop this, we still didn't act in the right way, and we're fully responsible.
Is it time to step back from the rivalry and maybe take off a couple of years?
I think I was pretty clear on how I feel about the game. If it can't be played the right way, it doesn't need to be played, whether it's next year or forever. Now, you have to understand that, you know, the universities will probably make that decision, and I'm going to support my university fully.
This is for Jack and/or well, actually for both. Have either of you reached out to Kenny Freeze? Do you plan on doing it at any time?
No.
Do you plan on doing it?
Well, we understand, these guys are in a moratorium, you know, in a cooling down period. I've sat these guys down. Even if a Xavier player reaches out to apologize for starting at something or for pummeling a guy, because it was a two-way street, okay, and that do not respond. You know, the last thing we need right now is any more back and forth. So these guys have been instructed to do not talk to those guys right now. You know, and some of them are friends. You got to understand that. So I know some of you guys are friends. Right now, everybody needs to. They need to get on with their season. We need to get on with ours. We don't need because it'll just be like the incident with Sean Kilpatrick. Somebody finds out about somebody talking and this and that, and then somebody's going to blow it out of proportion again and make the kids look bad. So the best thing right now to protect them is, even though some of them are friends, is to stay away from each other.
Under the university's auspices, would you consider that, though? Would that be all right with you if under Whit or Mike Levinsky or the school president?
Are you talking about us getting together and?
Well, I mean, just trying to bring some closure to what happened on the court.
You know, I think that may be down the road. I'm not sure.
Yes.
You know, but, you know, there's been
Absolutely.
I think Whit and I have received a lot of suggestions, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
About doing things. I mean, there's so much good going on in our community and so many charities we can help that, you know, like Yancy, we'd be the first guys to be there. So, you know, and I've said this, we got to turn it into a positive. So, you know, all those things are, whether it's with them or it's just us doing it, you know, whatever it takes to make everybody realize that, you know, kids make mistakes on both sides, and realize that, you know, these guys they're good people that were, for a few seconds, made some really bad decisions.
Yancy, what are your thoughts about, you know, now that you know it's only 6 games and you can suit up for UC again, how would you take advantage of what people deem your second chance or maybe even your third chance?
I mean, just go out there and just try and play. You know, even if another team wants to, try to do the same thing Xavier did with us, just learn from your mistakes. And if that situation happens again, then I know how to handle it better next time. But, just try to take full advantage of the opportunity when it comes back for me to get to play again.
For the student athletes, anything else for student athletes? Anybody? Okay, guys, why don't you come
Last.
and we'll still have Coach and Whit right there.
Thanks, guys. Can you talk about the decision on 6 games, where that comes from,
Sure.
and why that was the path you guys chose?
Absolutely. Within an hour after the game, President Williams and I were together with Coach Cronin, and we wanted to take a look at the film, and we looked at that exhaustively. And after that, after talking with Coach a little bit, we dismissed ourselves from there, and he and I came to the conclusion there. The difficult thing in the process was there was no real roadmap for it. So we wanted to do our due diligence. We tried to find some precedent and other things there. We spent some time on the phone with the Big East Conference, finding out in all the years of Big East basketball if there was something we could compare to. We talked to the head official of the Big East that's been there since the beginning. He gave us some guidance, but he also expressed to us that in 4 years here that he had never had any trouble with Yancy Gates, any of his crews. So we took that into consideration. We talked to other athletic directors, some coaches. We really tried to do our due diligence. We considered every option. I mean, we looked at everything from the one game NCAA mandated suspension to dismissing guys for the season. The people in the industry that we talked to, again, there was no real roadmap or precedent for this. The numbers that were coming back to us were lower than what we came up with. But after some conversations with the president and doing our due diligence, we were confident in the number of 6 games. And we looked at, do we stagger them in? Do we take some non-conference games off and do them in the Big East? And, we felt like it needed to be an immediate suspension. We felt like it needed to have some teeth to it. No amount of games can take those punches back. And, God forbid, if it happens again in another school, they can call us and use us as a roadmap. But we felt like it set the tone. We felt like even though Yancy's punch got the most publicity, understandably so, that the other guys for engaging in a fighting action that's inexcusable, we felt like they should all be punished the same. So that's how we came up with it.
There was something of a precedent set last year with LeGarrette Blount.
Yes.
10 games.
Yes.
Yancy, 10 out of whatever it was, 12, 13. This is 6
Yes.
out of 32
That's true.
or 3. Can you respond?
And that's
to
a
that?
valid and good question. I believe, I don't know for a fact, but I believe LeGarrette Blount was brought back before that. It certainly doesn't justify any of it. But at least thinking on that, I think an equivalent of Garrett Blount would have been if in the handshake line that he punched him. But we did discuss that. I looked at it. I just didn't feel that those 2 incidents were remarkably similar there. I believe, as I recall, LeGarrette Blount coming off the field just unprovoked punched him there. So we felt like this was a little bit different, but absolutely that could have been precedent. On the basketball side, the numbers that we were given, and make no mistake about it, it was my decision and the president's, but the numbers that we were given from people that had numbers of games in mind were lower than the one that we put out there. And I think now people looking at it, using us, again, God forbid it happens again, but they can use us there. But we wanted to move swiftly. We didn't want to rush into it, but we wanted to address it head on, and that was the decision we came up with.
Coach, do you feel like this has permanently tarnished Yancy Gates' legacy? Maybe you can't decide that today, but people around the country didn't watch him play the last 4 years. People around the country didn't see the good acts he did in the community. They saw this highlight. That's all they know. Is this too much?
Well, it's unfortunate. You know, the ultimate penalty that we talk about with our guys, you know, and Whit, since he's been here, talk about, you know, the logo never comes off. So, you know, when you do something and you're a public figure, you're going to hear about it, period. But what I talk to my players about all the time is we're not going to let other people define who we are. So one incident, although horrible incident for a lot of people involved, we're not going to let that define us. So I'm going to do everything I can, as long as, you know, Yancy, as you can see, he's pretty contrite about his feelings. He's very intelligent. He understands the magnitude of his mistake. But there was many people involved that threw punches that just maybe didn't connect. That's why we have other guys suspended. But that being said, you know, my job is college basketball coach, which I take seriously. Is almost the way I look at it, like his big brother, because I'm not that old. Is to help him get on with his life, and you know, we'll get him in the community and help repair his image, and his life will go on. And he's got to use this incident to make himself a better man. And there's many kids that young people, unfortunately, that make mistakes that they never get a second chance. That the results are much more tragic. So if this incident could end up being maybe the best thing ever happened to him, make him a better man someday, because that's what this is all about. You know, your concern, you know, not to say this, but in this way, but your concern about his image in basketball, to me, is way off base. You know, that's off base of what this whole thing is all about. That these kids, that's where they get confused. That this is all, that 98% of these guys aren't going to play in the NBA. 90% of them aren't going to play anywhere professionally in Division I basketball. And it's all about trying to help these guys become men, and where they can use this to have a better life. So my job's going to be to help him take this and move forward. And you know, certain people are always going to point to it. That's just, he's never going to be able to control that. But he can control the kind of person he is, the kind of husband he becomes someday, and the kind of father that he already is.
How does this affect the team on the court? You see now some players that may not have gotten a chance to play and be productive, helping your rotation down the line.
No question about it. We got a game Wednesday night. I got a lot of kids in that locker room that I got to get to here in a little bit, so we can go practice and be some opportunity for guys to play and find a way to become a better team. We got to use this incident as a way to become a better team. Obviously, we're going to be shorthanded, particularly on the front line, with only two guys over 6'5" on the team. But that we're not going to use that as an excuse. We're going to use this as a way to get better.
I don't know if Coach or Whit would answer this, but if the game is played next year, will you petition whoever is involved to bring experienced referees back?
It would be a home game here. The Big East. If the Big East would have been involved in the assigning, of the officials, then that's what would have happened. But they were not involved this year. In the past, the Big East was involved even in co-assigning rivalry games with the Atlantic 10 in an effort to make sure they got officials on those types of Temple, Villanova, St. Joe's, Villanova, Providence, Rhode Island, those types of Cincinnati Xavier games. Because what happens is, if the Big East isn't involved, the guys that you all know from ESPN, they have to take their Big East assignment, and the Atlantic 10 can't get their hands on them for that game, and that's the problem.
I'll add to that too. There's been no decision on the game, whether it's our home game or a neutral site, or whether we discontinue the series. And I've talked to Mike Babinski. If it does continue, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the front end to change the culture of that game. So it's not a decision we take lightly, and quite frankly, both Mike and I felt that there was some other more important issues to get to before that, but we're well aware that that's a discussion that needs to take place.
Coach,
which once the games are served, the suspensions are served, are they automatically going to be reinstated, or is it going to be how they conduct themselves during the suspensions that will trigger whether they get to put that uniform back on, as you referred to on Saturday?
There's some other things that they'll begin starting tomorrow. First is counseling through our medical staff. We've already have a specialist for anger management. Second will be community service, and we got to go through compliance on that. I would like them to be able to speak to high school teams, but I have a feeling that that's not going to be NCAA compliant. But there will be community service where they're going to talk to kids and make sure that they apologize to the kids that they talk to. That's why I'd like it to be basketball players, because those are the kids that look up to them the most, the kids in their community. And then the final part of that will be when we come back to school. We are in the process of reaching out to our student government president, to make sure that the students that currently attend the university, that they're apologized to by not just myself and the team, but in particular the guys that were up here today, that they apologize to their classmates, because again, people chose to come to our school and our university, and we love it, and we feel like we diminish them in some way, so that we're gonna need to make some need to make some amendments there.
Mick, I had a college basketball official, longtime official, tell me yesterday that no refs want to work this game for the reasons, obviously, that occurred yesterday. And not only that, he said he hadn't even heard of 2 of the 3 guys that were on that crew. My question is, have you ever been involved in one of these games in which none of the 3 guys who were reffing it had ever reffed it before? And how do you, whoever, make sure that you don't get that kind of a situation again?
The answer is no. I've never been involved. Obviously, I've been involved here in 2 tours of duty as an assistant and as the head coach. I've been involved in Kentucky and Louisville. And although nobody in this room knows it, just as heated as the crosstown shootout is Murray State Austin Peay, for those of you who ever want to go down that way. Very, maybe even more so. It's never happened. I've never been a part of that. Usually, but I explained to you why it happened. My frustration, obviously, which I've expressed to the Big East office, I wish I would have, again, known, and we could have reached out to all the parties involved. I mean, I know this. I mean, obviously, it's been a tough first month to walk into for WIT, but if I would have known a month ago, it's one of the first things I would have said, hey, we got a situation. Somehow we got to make sure we get guys in here that understand. That's why, I'm upset about it. It could have been, it could have been handled better, but also I feel like those guys they were sent into an ambush, and they had no idea what they were walking into.
But make no mistake about it, neither coach nor I, that's an excuse for the behavior. Absolutely not. I have just something I wanted to add, even though nobody asked the question. Regarding the suspension, too, never once, not from Coach Cronin, never once was a one-loss record ever brought up, what impact it would have or on the team, and never once was it discussed about anything to do with ticket sales and other things. So we purely made, the president and I, based on the due diligence that we did, the best decision we thought. And again, whatever number it was, some people would have issue with it. Again, whatever number it was cannot take the punches back. But our primary goal was to discipline and modify behavior. So I'd certainly like to add that. And then lastly, just as in the beginning, there's another group I'd like to apologize, and it's because I'm one of them, and that's the parents out there. I saw Coach Mack's comments yesterday. I have 3 boys at home, 7, 8, and 11, that were watching that game. And, there's not many channels out there kids can watch, and goodness gracious, you'd think it would be a basketball game. So I specifically not only want to apologize to the Bearcat family, but to parents out there that had to address that and explain it, and I'm one of them. And again, there's a lot of tremendous things here at the university, and we took a big step back, and that pains me deeply. And I'm proud. I was proud to take this job. I'm proud to be here now. But we've got a lot of significant work to do. But I believe that these players, they have zero tolerance. But hopefully it can go one of two ways. But I'm banking on it. I told them that I expect excellence from them. And I expect that it'll be a turning point in their life and make them better students, better husbands and fathers, and so on. But again, that apology is heartfelt, and on behalf of the University of Cincinnati, I'm sorry.
Anybody else say anything?
Coach, have you been able to talk to Chris Mack?
No. We spoke after the game. We both understand the situation is bad. So we both looked at each other for 5 seconds, didn't know what to say other than I'm sorry. You know, we both know it's no good for every and all reason. It's no good for anybody, including all you guys here.
Anybody else?